This is Dante Williams, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
So much for this being a real fight. Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? First things first, I will say congratulations to Triple G for extending his knockout streak. We can't really say it was a fantastic knockout over a great opponent that was supposed to produce a real fight, according to Triple G. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and tell you what Triple G said. Now, Triple G said a couple weeks or whatever it was before the fight, I'm fighting a Mexican, so this is going to be a real fight. That's what he said. Apparently, Triple G's idea of a real fight is someone making it very easy for Triple G. That's what I'm starting to believe. I mean, of course, a guy that backs up to the ropes, goes into complete survival mode, gets caught with a shot on the top of the head, falls to the ground, and then falling to the ground wasn't good enough, because then he rolls all the way over to his back, stretches his arms out as the referee is counting him out in Spanish, so there was no excuse for him to say he didn't understand what the referee was saying. Rubio wisely times the count, so he gets up just right after about 10, right? But this is the real fight that Golovkin says he loves to be in. Oh, he loves to be in these type of real fights. I guess Curtis Stevens wasn't a real fight, right? What's funny about me even saying that is I was watching the Golovkin versus Stevens fight earlier today before I watched Golovkin versus Rubio. You know how they play the old fights before we get to watch the main event, right? Well, I'm watching that fight, and now looking back, by way of contrast to the Rubio fight, that fight looks even way more of a real fight than the Rubio fight. Wouldn't all you guys agree with me on that? In fact, even Jim Lampley agrees with me. If you guys go back, watch the fight on demand around the 5th or the 6th round, because Stevens, he was giving Golovkin a fight. So around the 5th or the 6th round, Jim Lampley, he says, Curtis Stevens might not be winning this fight, but Golovkin, he knows that he's in a real fight. Those were his exact words. He knows that he is in a real fight. When Stevens got knocked down by a vicious punch from Triple G, Curtis Stevens could have easily stayed on the ground and said, let me go ahead and collect my damn check. I think that's all for tonight. I'm done. He could have packed it in, right? Just like Rubio did. But instead, guess what Stevens did? He got back up and he put himself right back in the fight. Matter of fact, after Curtis Stevens got up, he was backing up Triple G throughout the fight. Okay? Now, eventually he got knocked out. But I think you guys understand the point that I'm making. The point that I'm making is very simple. Gennady Golovkin was involved in a real fight when he fought against Curtis Stevens. Gennady Golovkin, he was in a real fight when he fought against Kassim Ouma. If you guys never seen Golovkin versus Kassim Ouma, check it out on YouTube. It was life and death for Gennady Golovkin. It was, in the words of Golovkin, a real ass fight. Okay? So I'm starting to think, whenever you hear Golovkin say, my next opponent is a real fighter, take that shit with a whole lot of salt. Let me tell you guys something. Whenever you hear a fighter say, I want my opponent to fight a certain way, or if they do fight the way that I want them to fight, those are the type of fights that I like. When you hear a fighter say something like that, all that fighter is telling you is he wants an easier fight. He wants the fight to be very easy. Like the fight was easy this past weekend. That's what he's saying. I like guys that let me hit them so that I can knock them out earlier. And I don't have to work for the knockout. I don't have to wait around for 12 damn rounds. I could get the knockout quick and go home. Those are the type of fights that I like. Real fights, just like that. Yeah, that's a real fight. I bet Mike Tyson, he thinks that the Michael Spinks fight was the realest fight that he ever been involved in, huh? Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. A whole lot of sense, Golovkin. So, when it comes to Golovkin, man, the guy is extremely talented. He's an aggressive fighter. He has a very good jab to be an aggressive fighter. But when are we going to see this man step up in competition? Don't get me wrong. I give Golovkin credit for taking the Curtis Stevens fight when he did. Even though we all know that Curtis Stevens, he had been knocked out previously a couple times. Okay? But yet and still, Stevens, he worked his way up the ladder. He deserved that shot at Golovkin. And Golovkin, he deserves credit for beating someone like Curtis Stevens. But now it's time to take your career to the next level. And we already know Canelo and Cotto, they're not going to fight Triple G. So if they're not going to fight Triple G, who is he going to fight? Froch is saying he doesn't really want to fight you. Who are you going to fight? There is only one fighter out there right now that is ready to fight, waiting by the phone, and that's Andre Ward. Listen, man, I could understand if Triple G had a gang of options, right? If he had an option to fight Canelo, Cotto, Peter Quillen, Arthur Abraham, or whoever else at the division. If he had all of these options, I could understand him saying, I'm going to save Ward for last because I know that that's my most difficult fight, right? I could understand him saying that. But the truth of the matter is Golovkin does not have a whole lot of options, so who is he going to fight? What is he going to do, give Rubio a rematch? Fight Brian Vera? I mean, who is he going to fight? I really do want to see Golovkin step up in competition. I want to see him fight one of the top middleweights, one of the top super middleweights. Stop calling out Canelo and Cotto because none of those guys are going to fight you. I would love to see Cotto versus Golovkin, Canelo versus Golovkin. That's not going to happen because Canelo is not about to get in the ring with somebody naturally bigger and stronger than him and someone he already sparred with, which he knows firsthand how strong Triple G is. Canelo not having that. Canelo's not doing that. There are only very special fighters that will get in the ring with opponents that are much bigger than they are. And that is, of course, fighters like Floyd Mayweather. Okay? Outside of Floyd Mayweather, there are not too many fighters that will get in the ring with a guy that is naturally bigger than they are. So it'll be really interesting to see when Gennady Golovkin will step up. Once again, some of it is Golovkin's fault. Some of it is not his fault. Because he does want to fight Carl Froch, which would be an excellent fight. But like I said last week on my radio show, I remember there was a time when nobody would fight Paul Williams. Nobody would fight Sergio Martinez. So what did they decide to do? They decided to fight against each other. Triple G should do the same thing. But we know he's not going to do that. We know the fans don't want him to do that. Why? Because all of these fans know that Andre Ward would beat Triple G. Just watching just a round and a half, just watching that, I could see it clear. I could see Golovkin, I gave Golovkin about a 5% chance to beat Andre Ward before. Now I give him a solid 0% chance of beating Andre Ward. He would have all the problems in the world. He's way too flat-footed, and he does not have the defense Another thing I noticed, which it was kind of surprising to see a fighter like Golovkin do this, because he's supposed to be the tough guy. I noticed on 2 separate occasions in the Rubio fight where Golovkin would attack with a combination. He would attack Rubio. Rubio would come right back and attack Golovkin. And you know what Golovkin would do? He would fall into a clinch. That's right. He would fall into a clinch. Go watch it. You'll see it. He did this. He did it in the first round, and he did it in the second round as well. He threw a barrage of punches. Rubio came back to throw a barrage of punches. And soon as Rubio started throwing back, Golovkin, he reached in and jumped in for a clinch. Once again, man, when you are considered the tough guy, the burden is on you to prove that you don't have to hold. You don't have to move around in the ring. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that, right? Because you're so tough, you're not expected to do stuff like that. Oh, that's just for the cowards and the wimps that want to move in the ring, who want to hold and clinch, according to the idiots. So, those were things that I noticed. I noticed he fell into a clinch. He felt uncomfortable. And going back to the Curtis Stevens fight, Curtis Stevens was backing up Golovkin a lot in that fight. Matter of fact, Jim Lampley, he said this is really unusual to see Golovkin being backed up in a fight. Okay? So, it'll be interesting, man. It'll be interesting to see what Golovkin decides to do. But that's pretty much all I got, guys. I'm on to the next one.